50 years ago, our good friend Bob Lutz worked at a small German car manufacturer based in North Munich and had a huge impact on what would become the gold standard of the sports sedan world, whether it's 2 or 4 doors, or you call it a 3 or 4 series. Fast forward to just a couple of years ago, and that last generation, they kind of phoned it in, or the competition got that much more stiff. Well, there's a new sheriff in town, and begs the question, does it change the deck in the sports sedan world? This, for the avoidance of doubt, is a 3-liter inline-6 that is turbocharged. You probably know the output, 382 horsepower that comes in at 5,800 RPM, stays flat all the way up to 6,500 RPM, and 364 pound-feet of torque that comes in at 1,800 RPM, stays flat all the way up to 5,000 RPM. In this case, it drives only all 4 wheels. There is no rear-wheel drive option in the M440i. That goes through anything you want, as long as it's an 8-speed torque converter automatic, the ZF unit. We've driven in many other BMWs. Where we get into significant changes. This is the first BMW you and I are driving that is a 48-volt electrical system. This is a mild hybrid. But where it diverges from the Mercedes we've been driving so frequently is, number one, there is an accessory drive here, but there is that integrated starter generator motor that is the foundation for the 48-volt electrical system. What BMW does significantly different, they have a 48-volt battery, and they use the brakes, as well as when you drive the car aggressively in sport mode, to drive energy and store it in that 48-volt electrical battery. Now, what is the purpose of all this 48-volt fanciness? Well, first and foremost, it is definitely not what the US government says in terms of fuel economy estimates here. 22, 31, 25 combined, very similar to other non-48-volt 3-liter inline-6s we've driven from BMW recently. If I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, this is much more about less moving parts in this system, hopefully translating to better reliability beyond 5 years. And then there are a couple of tricks. Number one, the system is designed to provide more electric assist under very hard acceleration. And then number two, and this is kind of the opposite, you know how most of these systems, whether it's 48 volt or not, hybrids, they shut the engine off when you're stopped at a light. This system does that trick, but it adds that the system can glide, meaning if you're on the brake coming to a stop, up as high as 9 miles an hour. The engine will shut off as you come to a stop. Then the opposite, the performance figures. 0 to 60 is very respectable here, 4.3 seconds. VMAX is a little bit unusual. It's 130 miles an hour, but with a couple of the right packages, it can change to 155 miles an hour. So the combination of the 6-cylinder engine, all-wheel drive, and that mild hybrid system, not a lightweight by any stretch of the imagination. 3,977 pounds for a 2-door sporty car. Depending on how you express your weights and measures, 1,804 kilograms with that. It does wake up there. This one delivers beautiful power. I can't honestly tell you there's a huge difference in power delivery with the 48-volt electrical system. But you know, you forget, in today's day and age where you and I drive 400, 500, 600 horsepower engines from Germany, this under 400 horsepower car, you don't think of it as fast, but when you drive it, you're like, damn, this is a fast car. There are a number of unique things going on underneath the vehicle, so let's get the name, rank, and serial number out of the way right at the top. In the front, a combo strut shock. In the rear, multi-link unit, anti-sway bars front and rear. The wheels, 18 inches all the way around. However, this one's fitted with optional 19-inch wheels. The brakes on an M440 are the M Sport brakes. We've driven them many times before. What that translates to is larger diameter rotors all the way around, as well as a different compound of brake pad. Now, we did briefly touch on the fact that this is all-wheel drive, and that is the only way one can have a 6 in a 4 Series. However, it's set up a bit differently than other BMW xDrive systems in that the majority of the torque is going to the rear wheels most of the time. It's really only sending torque to the front wheels when it's necessary in loss of traction situations. And closing out the more pedestrian items, yes, there are indeed adjustable dampers. Now let's focus on some of the more unique bits. The rear track is now 1.2 inches wider. The car sits 0.3 of an inch lower to the ground than a 3 Series. That in turn has an impact on the center of gravity, which is almost an inch lower to the ground. Then there's the construction of the vehicle. The hood, the fender, and the doors, all aluminum. Most of the suspension bits are made of die-cast aluminum. Then the shock towers, those are made of die-cast aluminum. Then they add additional bracing to the front of the vehicle, connecting the shock towers to the front of the car, as well as underneath the rear suspension. For a very heavy all-wheel drive car, there is good control over all planes of motion, particularly good when it comes to pitch. However, that is up to a certain line of demarcation. So reasonable speeds, even somewhat less reasonable, there's good control. However, push it more aggressively and get it out of its comfort zone, and that's where pitch truly breaks down. However, the much bigger point there, someone made a huge investment into the platform, meaning the structure of the vehicle, and they have much higher aspirations for it later on down the road, to the point where all the hardware here is good, but I would say the coming M version of this will have driving dynamics more up here than where this is here. Yes, it is indeed time for us to have the talk. And no, we don't need to only focus on the nose. I will let you guys opine about that in the comments below, because there are far more significant design elements to discuss. Some are more controversial. Let's start with the first, and that is the overall look of the vehicle. It does not look like a BMW. It does not have the silhouette of a BMW. Yes, it has a kidney grille, but very distorted, to the point that as I was driving this vehicle, I got a lot of attention with this vehicle. Most of it was positive, but everybody said, "What is that thing?" And when I told them it was a BMW, no one believed me. They're like, "That doesn't look like a BMW." I got answers ranging from the Scion TC, believe it or not, to the Hyundai Genesis Coupe. I wouldn't call that last one a compliment, and I can see why they're saying that, because you look at the greenhouse, specifically the C-pillar, and it looks reminiscent of an old Genesis Coupe. Now, more on the positive of the design, there are wonderful elements throughout the vehicle, yes, including the nose. This is more three-dimensional than you think, and it is arguably more attractive to see in person than in pictures, because in pictures all you see are the buck teeth, but when you're up close and personal with a vehicle, you can see some of the concave and convex elements in the sheet metal. Then color and trim normally has a huge impact on the success or failure of interior design. Here, much bigger impact on exterior design, and I'll prove it to you. Look at the grille surround, the mirror fairing, the tailpipes, as well as the wheels. That is a specific trim only on the M440. They call it cerium titanium gray or something like that. Works with every color on offer. Then there is one additional design item we need to discuss. And that would be the interior, which doesn't go off the BMW design plantation like the exterior does. If anything, it's exactly the opposite. All of the usual BMW interior design themes are there, even down to the tactile feel, as well as the UX interaction. And I would argue it's one of the better ones out there, because BMW has chosen to remain with hard buttons, knobs, and switches for frequently used items, which are significantly safer. However, that's not the big departure here. The vehicle itself changes size by a lot. The wheelbase, 1.6 inches longer. The overall length, 5.2 inches longer, which has a huge impact on, yes, the exterior, changes the proportions of the look of the car, but more importantly, it changes the proportions of the interior and the feel of the interior, because now it feels like a bigger car. However, they make some additional changes to augment the existing BMW design ethos. Like, for example, you look at the console in a 3 Series, it's kind of low. The console here is higher and swept up, so you feel like you're sitting in the car, not on the car. Okay, so yes, a more traditional interior design in today's day and age of iPads in your car. However, to my eye, this is a much more pleasant place to be in a vehicle like this. But now we need to put it together with the exterior. And there, if I were to hazard a guess, we just need some time to acclimate to this design as a BMW, because if you really think about it, go back to the days when BMW was run by Bob Lutz over in Europe. They all looked the same back then all the way to now. This is really the only departure. Now granted, my good friend Amro in Saudi Arabia will disagree with me on that point. He will say that the Bengal era 7 Series was the first departure. But the difference between this and that, this is attractive, that one wasn't. What really stands out is the change in generations here. If we go back 2 generations ago, 3 Series, 4 Series, the switch from that to just the previous generation wasn't so great. They kind of phoned it in. Here they clearly righted that wrong, and this, it's good. It's really good and reminds you of BMWs from the past. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game of mine, the options game, with today's contestant, an incredibly important car to car folks around the world, the BMW 4 Series. This one specifically is the 2021 BMW M440i X-Drive Coupe. That is BMW speak for all-wheel drive, for $58,500. To that we add a stunning shade of Arctic Race Blue Metallic. It's kind of like the old Saab, like medium gray metallic blue they had on 900s. It's exactly that color, and really a good color at that. And a bargain at $550. The interior, cognac Vernasca leather with contrast stitch. Me personally, I'd like to see a little bit more cognac in there and less tan, but still a beautiful interior, $1,450. To that we add the driver's assistance package. This is very much like Distronic Plus in the Mercedes-Benz world. Here they call it Extended Traffic Jam Assist. Think of this as the safety doodads and the level 2 autonomy. No, it is not a self-driving car, but sort of level 2 autonomy for $1,700. Then the executive package, incredibly important on this car. That's the heated seats, the heated wheel, the gesture control, so you don't have to touch any of the buttons, and then the LED headlights, and then the most important thing, the head-up display, which has the performance setting in there, $3,700. And then oddly, the coolant and high performance tire package. This also is very important because it's not only the 19-inch wheels, it's the M technology package, which raises the VMAX from 130 to 155 miles an hour, $1,500. And then oddly, adaptive suspension is optional on the bigger engine 4 Series. Why is that optional on an almost $60,000 car? $700. And then a note about the Harman Kardon sound system. You and I drive those Porsches and the Mercedes with $5,000 Burmester sound systems, which are really good, and yes, better than this. But at $875, this is almost too close to comfort for those that are thousands of dollars. Then Qi wireless charging. Why is it optional on an almost $60,000 car for $500? Then the only other thing we have to add is the destination handling for $995, which built in for the retail price here, $70,470. Steering is a bit of a mixed bag here. Yes, it's a BMW, so of course it's good, the weighting is good, and it works, meaning you point and go. However, again, like in driving dynamics, there is that line of demarcation where you can push it past its comfort zone, and the car does indeed want to plow a bit. Now, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, that is a function of A, the front wheels have not one but 2 jobs to do, and B, right back to that very high, unusually high curb weight for a car this size. This is good, really good, to the point that I would say this generation of 4 Series is significantly more competitive than the last generation of 4 Series against its peers. I would go so far as to saying that it is now, once again, the gold standard in the sports sedan world. The only struggle I'm having is the money. The one you and I drove today is not fully loaded, and it's 70 grand. In my mind, 70 grand can buy you a lot of different cars. I don't know if I would want a two-door sports sedan for that amount of money. So that's why I'm going to turn this around to you guys. For $70,000, would you choose this? Am I crazy? And that's the going rate for these types of vehicles? Or would you choose something else? What would you choose and why? Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV all one word, MotoManTV all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And until I see you in the next episode, hopefully with something that has a 48-volt electrical system and drives kind of like this, bis später.